President Lazarus Chakwera is calling for more humanitarian aid to help the 500,000 people displaced by Cyclone Freddy. The country's disaster management agency says the displaced are currently living in over 500 camps. International aid agencies have been stepping up relief efforts in the wake of the tropical cyclone, which has worsened the country's ongoing cholera outbreak. Freddy first hit the country in late February before making a second landfall in March, killing over 500 people in the country. Speaking in Parliament on Wednesday, President Chakwera announced the government's plan to establish legislation to cushion victims of natural disasters. The plan was welcomed by opposition parties, who also called upon government to tackle sanitation issues within camps to avoid outbreaks of diseases like cholera. Well, we're joined by Ifeoma Malo, founder of Clean Technology Hub and a global clean tech leader who's based in Abuja, Nigeria. Ifeoma, thank you so much for joining us on Africa Live. Could you explain to us the recent phenomena that we're seeing of the cyclones, floods in West Africa and drought in the Horn of Africa region in relation to Africa's future as a whole and climate projections?
Thank you for having me. It's an important question you ask because the entire cyclone phenomenon is not just hitting West Africa, it's actually affecting all of sub-Saharan Africa. We've had about 1,000 lives that were lost with Cyclone Ida, which hit Mozambique, Zimbabwe, and Malawi a few years ago. We had over almost 100 lives that were lost when there was a record cyclone that hit Tanzania. And we had about, I think, 52 lives lost. And we've had Ida, which is the costliest cyclone in the region and has cost the countries that it hit about $2 billion. And then we've also had Cyclone Kenneth, which added up to about $100 million in terms of damages. And we had Cyclone Alois, which hit in 2021 in South Africa as well. So you can see that there's now been a rapid and almost sequential cyclone phenomenon coming across several countries on the continent, and this is increasing, and this has a lot of impact, and the impacts are because of the climate change situations that we're facing in all of these countries, and a lot of African countries not being very prepared or well prepared strategically to handle a lot of the environmental, economic impacts that come with the cyclones as well.
Ifeoma, I was about to ask you about that just in terms of preparedness. What needs to be done to avoid the recent phenomenon, or at least mitigate some of the effects? And some of the arguments that we're hearing are talking about infrastructure, about how that also needs to be something that needs to be addressed.
That's actually a fact. I think, we have to put infrastructure front and center. But the sort of infrastructure that is needed is green infrastructure. We cannot continue to use the same type of old methods of building economies and building countries and not expect that we won't have this sort of natural disasters and climate impacted disasters. So one of the things that we need to begin to look at, as every country is developing its energy transition plan, its climate action priorities, is begin to look at how we can do green infrastructure, green construction as part of those developmental indices. And I think the other part of it is we also have to have proper disaster management planning across the continent, because what happens is, because we're so unprepared and we do not have this disaster management opportunities infrastructure in place, then we see that the impact is then multiplied even beyond where the natural disasters has stopped.
Ifeoma, thank you so much for joining us on Africa Live. Ifeoma Malo, she's founder of Clean Technology Hub, and she was speaking to us from Abuja, Nigeria.